Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, April 22nd, and today is the 199th day since October 7th. Over the weekend, while the U.S. was approving the foreign aid package that's set to allocate some $26 billion for Israel, $14 billion of that is unconditional military aid, and $9.1 billion is for humanitarian needs. If approved by the Senate, Israeli airstrikes were happening on the south of Gaza in Rafah, killing 18 people yesterday, and according to the Associated Press, most of them were children. The $26 billion in aid includes, as I mentioned, $14 billion in military aid, $9 billion for humanitarian needs. It does include some humanitarian funds for the West Bank and Gaza. The U.S. House of Representatives voted resoundingly for this, in favor. The vote was for 366 in favor, 58 against, 37 Democrats and 21 Republicans voting against. Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked Congress for passing the emergency aid bill, saying that it demonstrates strong bipartisan support for Israel and defends Western civilization. Also over the weekend, I just want to show you that the situation in Gaza continues to be desperate and dire. And while we're not hearing about it as much in the news, and while we're approaching, tomorrow is the 200th day since all of this began, a mass grave was uncovered in Gaza over the weekend, where 283 bodies were found near the Nasser Hospital compound in Khan Yunis in South Gaza. Authorities in Gaza have announced that they have managed to identify 43 of the bodies so far. According to rescue services, the number of missing people in the Khan Yunis area is about 500 people. It's been said that there are about 7,000 people. That number now has increased to about 9,000 people that are missing, suspected to be under the rubble. Families of missing persons came to the area and the grave the last few days to try to locate them. NBC reported over the weekend about a pregnant mother who was killed in Gaza. She was 7 months pregnant, and the infant that was in her womb was saved. This was at a house in Rafah. It belonged to the Judah family. The owner was targeted, and 3 people in the home died. Shukri Judah, his wife Sabrine Al-Sakti, and his daughter Malak Shukri Judah. And then NBC describes it as a miracle. It happened at the Kuwaiti hospital. The mother was 7 months pregnant, and the doctors were able to cut open the mother and to try to revive the fetus. The fetus was revived and transferred to the Emirati hospital. And NBC conducted an interview with Dr. Mohammed Abu Zakari, and this can actually be seen, my understanding is online. And you can watch and through translators listen to him, an interview with the doctor who says, it's okay. Let the people see. Let them see this crime, this murder. I am giving this baby, I'm giving her artificial breathing, and the baby's mother came and became a martyr. Just remember, martyr is like that. The word literally means witness, the way that we talk about witness in the Christian tradition. We operated on the mother to take the baby out of the belly. The baby, her situation is critical because her time in her mother's belly has not been enough, and we're trying to give her first aid. And then the interviewer says, how many months, along? And there's a conversation with the nurse, and they're putting the baby on oxygen and trying to help the baby breathe. And they're asking how she is. And the doctor says, we thank Allah that we have gotten to her. We thank Allah and that we think she'll be okay. So, that's a beautiful story of this child's life being saved while the mother's life was taken. And the doctor, kind of prays over the baby that by Allah's will, by the will of God, might this child live. While that is happening, the death toll in Gaza is 34,097. Those numbers are as of yesterday, Sunday, and those wounded is now at 76,980 in Gaza. In terms of the hostage situation, it seems to be at an impasse. Hamas has said they are not willing to negotiate unless there is a comprehensive and complete ceasefire on the table. Netanyahu has said in coming days, we will increase military and political pressure on Hamas. It is the only way to free the hostages and achieve victory. The head of Hamas's political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh, has said that Israel refuses to accept Turkey and Russia as guarantors of any agreement between the Israelis and Hamas, and has accused Israel of being unwilling to compromise on a complete ceasefire. in response to a high court petition and the release of the body of a security prisoner who recently died in jail. This was a Palestinian prisoner who died in custody of the Israelis. His name is Walid Daka, and his body will not be released for burial. Israelis sometimes won't release bodies to Palestinian families because they believe that he will be viewed as a martyr, that he will be elevated, and that could incite further resistance. This is very, very contentious within the Palestinian community. And so the prison system has said that they will hold the body until at least May 5th. They said that they're going to examine whether or not this prisoner's body would be used in a hostage for prisoner exchange. In Jerusalem this morning, there was a car ramming attack. Sources from Hebron say that the suspects who carried out the attack are believed to have been connected to Hamas. So that was in Israeli newspapers this morning. Israeli police also detained 13 suspects. I presume that these are Jewish suspects because they were aged 13 to 21 and were carrying goats in Jerusalem. Tonight is when Passover began in Jerusalem. They were suspected to be on their way to the Haram al-Sharif, which is called the Temple Mount, to, quote, disturb the peace. In recent years, fringe religious groups have increasingly sought to carry out sacrifices as a flashpoint at this Jerusalem holy site, as they did in Passover during biblical times. The group, one of the groups is called Returning to the Mount, and it makes a request every year to have this ritual sacrifice, and they're repeatedly denied by Israeli authorities. And it would be seen as a major change to the status quo. The Haram al-Sharif is under the control of the Waqf. It's the most sacred site in Islam in Jerusalem, and it would spark fierce backlash across the entire region as well. In the West Bank over the weekend, Israeli security officials started to investigate an incident that happened on Sunday night where 6 Palestinians from the West Bank town of Burqa were wounded. And there were other incidents over the weekend. A Red Crescent, the equivalent of the Red Cross, an ambulance driver was wounded, shot on Saturday during a confrontation between settlers and Palestinians. The medic who was with him during the clash said that he was shot by soldiers. The IDF said that in a separate incident, soldiers shot and killed 2 Palestinians who had attacked them near Hebron. In a separate incident, a Palestinian woman was accused of trying to stab soldiers at a different checkpoint. She was shot dead. And so the West Bank, things are escalating. Hostilities also have heated up on the border between Lebanon and Israel. There were 35 rockets fired from Lebanon towards South Israel. Most fell in areas that caused no damage, but Hezbollah claimed responsibility. In terms of the conversation around Iran and Israel, the little girl, Amina al-Husseini, she was 7 years old. She was the only injury from the Iran attacks maybe a weekend ago. 7 years old. She has improved, according to the hospital where she has been treated. Iran's Supreme Leader al-Khamenei thanked his country's armed forces for the strike against Israel and said how many missiles were launched and how many of them hit the target is not the primary questions. What matters is that Iran demonstrated its willpower during the operation. Iran is set to receive Russian fighter jets in the next few days, according to their media. After Israel called the Iranian attack feeble, their national security minister, Ben-Gvir, said in response to the backlash that he was not encouraging Iran and that Israel could not meet missile fire from Iran with weak responses as it had been for years, with Hamas. Satellite images showed damage to air defense radar in the Israel-attributed strike on Isfahan in Iran. That was Israel's counterattack. Israel is suspected to have attacked the consulate in Damascus. Then Iran attacked Israel, and then Israel counterattacked. Those kind of back and forth. So there was supposed to be damage at this nuclear site, according to an Iranian website. As a reminder, analysts have said that the goal of the most recent Israeli strike was not to cause damage, but to show that Israel has the capability to strike with inside Iran. I was speaking to an official from the Obama administration, and he said in the past 5 to 10 years, Israel has not had that capability, so that is quite significant. In the United States, college campuses have been erupting over pro-Palestinian protests, including Columbia and Yale. Today, Columbia University students attended classes virtually. The school officials hope to de-escalate the situation. There were mass arrests there last week. Yale students have started an Occupy Beneke protest, where students erected a 24-tent encampment outside of Yale's Beneke Plaza. And they said in a statement on social media that the encampment was in solidarity with recent protests at Columbia. And so Boston, MIT, and Emerson also have seen student protests. And so student campuses have been very active. The Episcopal Church, their executive council, voted overwhelmingly on April 20th to support a resolution lamenting the ongoing deadly violence in the Holy Land since the Hamas October 7th attacks. Some council members raised concerns about the language in the resolution that talks about the potential genocide of Palestinians. That's the language we've been using. One of the reverends, a priest from the Diocese of Texas, Charles Graves IV, helped draft the resolution, and he urged its passage. And he said, his voice breaking with emotion, that this is such an urgent and severe situation. 2 months is a long time in the middle of war. 2 months is a long time when children are dying every day. And here we are now at 6 months. Those are my words. It goes on, this resolution, to call for an end to violence, the release of hostages by Hamas, increased humanitarian aid for Gazans, and the rejections of all form of anti-Jewish hatred. The Executive Council of the Episcopal Church voted 24-2 in favor of the resolution. Some members abstained. The full text has not yet been posted online. It will be, but the General Convention of the Episcopal Church will be happening this summer. Tonight, our Jewish friends and neighbors, those who are practicing, tonight Passover begins. And Shag Samach, I don't know how you pronounce that word, but you can wish a blessed Passover to our Jewish neighbors. The forward is a Jewish newspaper, and they said that when Passover begins, we'll be thinking, as we do every year, about freedom. We're commanded to tell the story of Jewish liberation from slavery in every generation so that we do not forget our past. It is particularly poignant this year after months of yearning for the release of hostages abducted by Hamas on October 7th. So might we be motivated by the story of liberation, liberation for Jews, liberation for Gazans, liberation for Palestinians, and liberation for all. So blessings to our Jewish friends who are observing Passover as we continue to work together toward peace.